when this idea came up, Colorado, obviously, I said, hey, you want to go back to Colorado? And so she said, yeah, sure. We didn't even know where Montrose was. We had to look it up on the map. And then, yeah, it was just kind of a funny story from there. But anyhow, so as far as Christian education is concerned, and again, my apologies for my voice.
You know, it's raspy.
Yeah.
We like it.
It's like Phoebe's singing voice.
Yeah.
No, so I had this, I started to get this calling to the ministry for a number of years before I retired from the Air Force. And I didn't necessarily know what that looked like. I never considered myself a full-time pastoral pulpit kind of minister.
Right.
But there was something that kept calling me to ministerial vocation, if you will. And so obviously my wife was a big part of that in the sense that her dad was a pastor, my dad was a pastor, and we didn't always have those wonderful experiences of, the perfect life where your family's taken care of and that it's loving and supportive. It was kind of the opposite of that for both her and I.
My dad was a Baptist, or is still a Baptist preacher in Albany, Georgia. I get it.
So you get that, right?
Totally get it.
Again, that's not always the case, but in our circumstances it was, and she's very adamant that she did not marry a pastor.
Go Tana!
Right, so I couldn't convince her that she didn't, of course she didn't marry a pastor, but that doesn't mean I couldn't become one, but she still wasn't having it. So I just had this idea that, at the end of the day, from a Christian perspective, all of our families are connected by one central thing, and that's our faith. And we do too much to separate ourselves. We divide ourselves by denomination or by church walls. And I just have this desire to try to bring our Christian community together. And if I can do that through promoting Christian education, where when you bring your children to our school, it's a partnership, and you become partners with us, and your children are just as important to us as my children are to me.
No matter what the denomination.
No matter what your denomination is or where you go to church, because those children are valuable and your family is valuable. And that to me is eternal. And we really like to focus on those things that are eternal, those things that have an eternal legacy, if you will. We use those catchphrases, but they're not just catchphrases. They're things that we actually really mean in our day-to-day activities. And that kind of is what led me to Christian education, because I had this desire, not only in the responsibility to do this for myself and my children, but I think I have this responsibility to help lead and disciple and help grow and develop children from all of our families. And we do that together through partnerships.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been fascinated with since you've been here, because I don't believe, and I've only been here 5 years, so I don't know what took place beforehand, but we have two private schools, Christian private schools here in Montrose, and it's Colorado West Christian School and Pope John Paul. What an amazing relationship. You guys are on the same road on a sunny side, and what a great relationship the two schools have. And that is because, of you and Tricia Hartman, and you guys have come together and said, you know what? This is who we are. We both provide Christian education. One's going to work for one and another's going to work for another. Yeah. How do we take care of these children and give them the best experience?
Yeah, it was actually interesting. I didn't have I had just gotten here when the old administrator at Pope John had just left, and I'd met Tricia through Montrose University.
Oh, okay.
And so we did a panel together on alternatives to public education, and we met with, it was myself, Tricia, and the head of school for the charter school here in town.
Okay.
And so when we left that event, basically I didn't even know her, and I said, hey, look, my name's Tim. Here's the deal. This is my philosophy. I'm not in competition with anybody. You service a completely different theological perspective from an education perspective than I do, and I don't feel that we need to be competitors. I feel that we can be mutually beneficial to one another and supportive of one another. And since that moment, her and I have developed a really good friendship, and they pray for our school daily. We pray for their school daily. And it's just one of those things where we're just that excited about providing Christian education to this community.
And there's some sporting aspects too that you collaborated on, that because these are things that usually these smaller schools don't have access to intramural sports.
Yeah, that's correct. So we actually have a partnership with 9 schools and between Montrose and Junction.
Okay.
And they're all Christian schools or homeschool groups. And we have our own sports league. And we compete primarily in basketball and volleyball with our students. And we have a regular season. So we have a district of 9 schools, and we compete in basketball and volleyball. And we have tournaments at the end of the year. And so our kids get that opportunity to not only to fellowship with one another during the day, but we also get to interact and build sportsmanship and camaraderie through sports.
That's amazing. Were you an athlete?
I was an athlete, yeah.
Of course you were. So I like to tell you that, I could slam dunk with the best of them or hit a volleyball. The only thing I did was open a book. I did cheer in high school and college, but I
should have been more book focused as opposed to sport focused. Yeah. But hindsight, it's always 2020.
It really is. But in the 40 years that you've been here, and first of all, I love the partnerships that you have. Thanks. And 40 years, the school has changed quite a bit.
It has, yeah.
There's a young lady who, she always kills me when I call her out, but she probably shouldn't tell me these stories. There's a young lady who works for me. And I said, Shelby, I wouldn't tell her your name again, but Shelby she remembers a time when she was in high school, and see, now they're all looking at Shelby. But she says she was going out to dinner. She's a young adult now in her 20s, with a young lady that went to Colorado West Christian school. And you still have one of her siblings in the school now. I think that family had 3 kids. And I said, well, how do you know them? I was just curious because we met in middle school because there was a whole group of kids that came from Colorado West, because I think you only went up to middle school.
Did, yeah.
Or through elementary, I can't remember, that all entered the public school system at one time. But that's changed now.
It has, yeah. So a few years ago, we started out of the need from a lot of our families where a lot of our families didn't want to send their children to public school for various reasons, and they didn't have the opportunity to homeschool. So we created basically a kind of a hybrid or a supervised homeschool program for them.
Okay.
But when I got there 3 years ago, realized that wasn't as beneficial of a program as we think it needed to be. And so we're on our 2nd year of a more traditional high school program where we offer teacher-led classes for every one of our core subjects. And so we're just working continuously to make sure that we have a high school opportunity for our students that can not only prepare themselves spiritually, but also to prepare themselves for whatever their future holds, whether that's academically or whether that's a vocation that they choose to pursue.
Yeah. And so over the past several years, you've had, I remember one year there was one student that graduated, from high school at Colorado West. I think this year you have 5 or
5 graduating this year.
5 graduating this year. So it is gradually increased that they've continued their school career with Colorado West Christian School.
Yeah, that's our goal, is to we have a max of around 15 students per classroom, and our goal is to get it to where at some point there's no room because all of the students are staying 1 year to the next.
Right.
And that we're going to look at graduating 10 to 15 every year from that point forward. So we're almost there.
For those who graduated years ago in some of these families, they're like, wow, I wish that existed when I was still there. What a great opportunity. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I have not picked on him enough regarding his voice, so we're going to make him sing when he comes back. But we're going to talk about a few more things at Colorado West Christian School. They've got some fun fundraisers that are coming up. You just had a big gala. So we're going to have a good time, and we'll be right back.
Believe it, just like Gigfoot, zero-lag gaming does exist. The real myth now? Slow internet made you lose. So step up your game with Elevate Internet today.
At the Real Estate Store, we're a group of real estate professionals who share all forms of property brokering in an innovative way. Our expertise and experience makes us the best choice for buyers and sellers. Our brokers are ready to assist you, either in person or virtually. Come visit us in historic downtown Montrose and experience for yourself the difference. of our personal, professional property brokers.
We are back. We have Tim Dieter, the administrator of Colorado West Christian School. He is laughing at me because, Tim, I don't know what's going on with our production crew. They should have told you that when you walk through the doors, especially if you're late, you bring cheese balls. You forgot the cheese balls.
I did. My apologies.
Okay.
Next time.
Next time? You
Next
promise?
time.
All right, then it better be like a big case of cheese balls. And I blame Elevate Fiber because, Bigfoot, is it even Bigfoot, Drew? Gigfoot. Gigfoot. Was eating cheese balls while he's playing video games. So we were laughing at the commercial break. So through all of the military, the 24 years, and then the years in healthcare, you're sick, aren't you?
Yes, I got sick earlier in the week. I think there's a norovirus or a stomach virus that's going around that's affecting a lot of the kids, and somehow I acquired it, and
you're around 170. What's the enrollment now?
170 students here at Montrose, and we opened our Delta campus this current year, and we have 35 students there.
That's amazing. Okay, let's talk about that because, it's fun to make fun of you being sick. You're around 170 kids, it should happen. I've got one kid, and I feel like we're overrun, my husband and I, so. But, there's so much going on at Colorado West. A ton. So this school year, you just said, let's open another campus because we can.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, actually, it wasn't something that we had, we didn't really seek out. And since I've been there, I've just really told the staff just to really be patient and to be just really open to what God has in store for us. And you kind of use the expression, put your seatbelt on and keep your hands inside the vehicle while it's moving, because you just never know where we're going,
right,
or how fast. So this last summer, Rivers Church from Delta came to us and they said, hey, we have a desperate desire to start Christian education back up in Delta. And so we talked about all sorts of opportunities, how they could run it themselves, how we could help them run it, how we could fly it under our flag, and just kind of gave them a lot of scenarios. They went back and prayed about it, and they came back and said, we want you guys to fly your flag over it, and we want to be supportive of that. And man, I tell you what, Rivers Church and the Delta community has been really phenomenal, just loving and supportive of the idea of Christian education. I think Christian education has undulated quite a bit in the Delta community, and so I think the onset, there was a lot of people that were just kind of curious as to about how successful this was going to be.
Right.
But also from a financial perspective, we knew we were going to take a hit financially, but we needed to commit. And so we said, hey, if we're going to commit to this, we're committing to at least a good 5 years of effort to try to make this happen, to see what God has in store for us. And first year in, our financials are going to be much better than we anticipated.
That's good news.
Delta and Rivers Church has been absolutely supportive, and they're just an amazing community. We couldn't imagine partnering with a better community or church organization.
So it's 35 students there, and are they all from Rivers Church, or just it's open to the community? It's truly a Colorado West Christian school.
That is correct.
That is okay.
So much like the relationship that we have here, we're a ministry of Trinity Reformed Presbyterian Church, and so while we're a ministry of a Presbyterian and Reformed Church, Colorado West is a non-denominational school, and we have teachers from various denominations. We have students from all denominational walks, and so that's what kind of makes us unique in the sense that, again, it kind of brings that unity and that team concept together. And the same thing with Delta is that Rivers is basically our partnering church. They've given us,
which means they're housed there.
That is
and
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So they have given us the use of their facilities. They don't charge us rent. It helps us keep overhead down.
Nice.
Helps us keep our tuition cost payments down for our families to be able to afford Christian education. And so it's just one of those things where it's just been a really wonderful relationship, and we're very thankful for them.
That's awesome. I am glad that we're in Delta, and I'd love to hear what you have planned next, because my guess is that it's not just going to stop there, hint, hint, wink, wink. But, what I love to hear is that you are truly, and you being Colorado West Christian School, is truly community oriented.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's the biggest aspect, I think, for me personally, because in the military, there's such a close community. And it's different when you come into a civilian community in the sense that within a couple weeks you're making lifelong friends when you first meet them in the military. On the outside, in the civilian world, it's not as easy, but that's not to say that they don't exist. It just takes a little bit longer to find those grooves, find those connections, and the more we build relationships and the more that we're proving the concept of what we're offering to our community and to our families and to our students, I think the more people are realizing that and just wanting to partner with us. And again, we don't ever want to raise a flag that says we're better than anyone else.
Right.
We don't want to. We're just an alternative to public education, and there are amazing schools. And so we're not saying that come to us because we're better. That's not the case. We just want to make sure that people know that if they choose to have this type of education for their family, that it's going to be here and it's going to be here for another 40 years.
No, I love that and respect that. Dear friends of mine, Gina and Carl Leuthauser, pastors of Grace Community Church, I mean, they've had 3 kids that, and I believe 3 have started and went on to public high school and so forth. And they have a little one in, Naya, in school now. And my son is going to kill me because he would like to go under the radar, but there's a little tan boy out of that 170 that walks around looking like you, Mr. Dieter. Every piece of clothing he has the Colorado West, logo on it. And it's just, if it's up to him, he wants to go to college there. He doesn't want to ever leave that. He entered at 4 years old. Not many people like me, and I did not know this, that you have a full kindergarten program for 4-year-olds.
Yep.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's a full academic day.
It is.
Yep.
And I see how he has thrived over the years. He's in the 3rd grade now. Again, don't go looking for him. He's going to kill me that I brought him up.
Oh, my son's in that class too.
So, but just how I have seen him progress as from a toddler, because they're truly toddlers at 4, to this just good young man. Just good. And
yeah, so that was the class that was in kindergarten, K5, when I first got here, and my son was in that class mid-year.
Oh, that's right, you did the kindergarten graduation.
We did, yep. And so it's really interesting in the sense that I look at that class to kind of be our, I wouldn't necessarily say our benchmark or the tip of the spear, if you will, but I use that class to prove the concept of what we're doing from an academic perspective, from a testing and a diagnostic perspective, but also just from a character perspective. And so this class has been in our curriculum since K5, and now they're in 3rd grade. And this class, I won't go into details, but they're absolutely phenomenal in more ways than one. Yeah. And I'm just very thankful for that. And I think it's attributed to not only our families, because we can't do this without our families, but it's attributed to the curriculum, the amazing support of our teachers, the love and the support of our families that desire their kids to be a part of this and want to partner with us. And it's all of that together, and I think it's really amazing to see what you can get out of a child when you give them incomplete or just attention and support, and just let them do them, and they grow phenomenally, and it's wonderful.
They do. I cannot disagree with that. So everything's been really easy in the past 3 years, right? You got here, and it's been like just no problems whatsoever. It was almost as if a pandemic never even happened.
Nope, didn't happen.
So tell us how. There are 2 big things that are going on. One is hopefully we're over the whole pandemic stages of things, or we're getting close. But employees, and specifically teachers, that's rough around the country.
It is.
And here in Montrose, it's got to be really tough, especially if it's, you're narrowing it down to just, a Christian school too. So talk about some of the challenges of the pandemic and finding educators.
Yeah, so actually one of the biggest challenges that I have on a daily basis is finding, so again, this is not a slight on Western Colorado, it's Western Colorado. It's more rural. There's not a lot of industry that's out here. It's a lot more based on tourism and the other things. And so the available, the pool is, we're not like the Front Range. We're not Big Springs. We're not Denver, where there's just millions of people. to pull from. And so our demographic is just a lot smaller. And so hiring staff that shares our vision and our passion for education is a very difficult. One, because you have to find someone who's a teacher. Then two, we find someone who shares our Christian values and perspectives. And then three, it is a ministry, and so we don't necessarily pay on par or equivalent to our public school counterparts. And so it is a ministry from that aspect. And so finding someone who meets the first two, but also can work for the wages that we pay them, because again, our tuition's been around the same for about 40 or 20 years. It's been around $4,000 a year for 20 years, and so it stayed very stagnant. But we operate off of about 5% of our tuition income. The rest of it goes to payroll. So we operate on very low margins, and so we don't have a lot of room for those things. But God has been very grateful or gracious to us, and we're very grateful for that. And He continues to provide for us every day. So.
Well, at least 40 years. So even with those stats that you just gave us.
It's not always easy, but it's been fun.
Good. So tell us about the pandemic. What's the day-to-day school like? How long have you guys been out? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, when it first started, like everybody else, when we didn't have a lot of information, and we tried to be as receptive and responsive to the situation as much as possible. I was helping with the county and the Emergency Operations Center, and so I'd built some relationship there that kind of helped me, just from a school perspective, also get some information just to stay on top of the situation as it progressed.
Right.
So we canceled, or we stopped school that first semester and did the homeschool thing. We did it as best we could. We logged in with our students every day. If it was 8 o'clock for science class, it was 8 o'clock for science class. 9 o'clock was math. You logged in for 9 o'clock math. And that worked well for us, but obviously it's not ideal for any of us, for our families, for our teachers, for anyone that was involved. And then as it continued, we started the next school year. We developed in partnership with Pope John Paul and Dr. Brzezinski and some of their board members some of our COVID protocols that we were going to implement because we wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. We didn't want anyone to look like, well, Pope John is doing this, you guys are doing this. We wanted to approach it from a unified perspective that, well, this is what we are going to do, this is how we're going to approach it, and we did it together. So that was very helpful. But throughout the course of the pandemic, we've just chosen to manage it on a case-by-case basis. We've actually not had to shut our school down once because of COVID. We've just managed it on an individual student or family situation. We implement our COVID protocol whenever that is necessary, and we just manage it on a one-on-one basis.
You know, when people ask me, and I've got staff here that I think their son has been out 4 times for 2 weeks at a time, and they're like, "How is Preston not out of school?" And the only thing I can attest it to is the school, Colorado West, sent out some rules and said, if your kid has a stuffy nose, if it has, whatever it is, or someone in your household is not well, keep them home.
Right.
And I believe the smaller classrooms, there's an average of 15 kids per classroom, and the fact that, you know what, if we want our kids to continue to be educated on a regular basis, then what we have to do is take responsibility in the homes. And you see more parents, or families, doing that. And they're getting grandparents and everyone else involved. Hey, little Johnny can't go to school today because we don't know what it is. It might be the common cold. Did you know that still existed?
I have heard that. And the flu's coming back.
Is it? Yeah. Really? Okay.
I'm just kidding.
But we're going to keep them home just in case. And, you call the school, you have their books and everything sent back. That is, I got to tell you, that's surprising to me. And it's exciting to hear that we can get to some sort of normal.
Well, and the challenge is that, and again, we don't have 4,000 students.
Right,
And we don't have various campuses and different socioeconomic statuses, we do have some, but it's not to the degree of the public school, and so it's just so much more difficult for the public school to manage. With 170 students for us, our classes are, as you mentioned, 15 to 1 on average, and they're basically cohorted on a daily basis. And what I asked people and what I told people when this first started was, I am desperately concerned with your one. And so when you consider the parable of the lost sheep, Christ leaves the flock to go find the one. But on the other hand, I am also interested in the whole. Because we realized how vulnerable, because we're a small business in the state of Colorado. We're not considered an educational institution from a business perspective. And so we realized how vulnerable we were based on these events. And so while I am concerned with the one, I'm equally concerned with the 99. And I need to desperately make sure that the school exists and the school doesn't shut down and that the school can continue to operate. And so we did ask our families to help us and manage that and mitigate the extenuation of those risks by keeping their kids home and doing the things. So,
well, it seems to be working.
Yes.
So tell us about a couple of, it's your 40th year and there's some fun activities and things. You had a gala that was a fundraiser, but you also have something else coming up.
We do, yeah.
So talk about that.
So it's our 40th anniversary. We had our gala, which was a fun event, and so just to celebrate our 40th anniversary, it was more of a formal event, and so we don't get an opportunity to dress up in Montrose too often. And in the military, we did that, and so I think the ladies liked putting on some nice dresses and doing some things. I think the husbands were less pleased, but I liked it.
They did it anyway, right?
They did. And so we actually have it's our second annual clay shoot that we're having over at Black Canyon Wing and Clay. It's up in Delta. And so this is a fundraising opportunity for our school. It's an opportunity for our families to come out and have some fun and shoot some clay pigeons, have some food, and just have some really good time fellowshipping with one another.
And when is that taking place?
It's going to be on the April 9th, and it's going to be from 10 to 4. And so if anyone would like any more information on that, don't hesitate to have them call the school.
Awesome. And then for those, because you are are you a 501c?
We are.
Nonprofit, and you don't get state funding or anything like
correct.
that. So if you'd like to help the school in any way, whether it's supporting the skeet shoot or just make a random donation, they can do that by calling the Colorado West Christian School in Montrose?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So anything that I was just like, I knew I was going to make a little more fun of you and I didn't.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, because my kid, if he gets in trouble, he's going to say it was because of me. No. But Tim Dieter, we are so happy that you and your family are in Montrose, Colorado, and that you call it home. We are so happy that you are running this school, Colorado West Christian School, and we hope that you can take it into the next 40 years.
I hope so as well. Thanks, Tanya.
You're very welcome, Tim. You guys, let's make it a great weekend in Montrose.